Architectural Builders Supply is pleased to present you with this recording of the technical question that is listed in the title of this video.
This call may be monitored and recorded for quality assurance.
Video where you chatted with, it actually wasn't a video, it's just a YouTube, has no video but just sound with you talking to a guy about a pivot door and automatic door bottoms and such.
That sounds like me.
Yeah. Do you know, did he ever move forward and buy stuff from you and have a successful project with the items you guys were talking about?
Well, that conversation occurs once a week. So
really?
Over the years, I would have no idea which conversation it was.
This was from July 14th of 2020.
That's probably when it was uploaded. That conversation could be a month, a year, 3 years old.
Gotcha.
I wouldn't recall without a very exact, recounting of the conversation.
Right. Okay. Well, so what I have an architect that likes to draw things that are hard to pull off, and we try to, before we go back and say we can't do this, we try to make sure that we really can't do it. And I'm pretty sure we could get him some version of what he wants, but he wants a 44-inch wide, 10-foot tall, probably 450 pounds by my guesstimation, door on a bottom pivot hinge. Not, one that does not show from the surface in any way, so it's mortised into the bottom and top of the door, like a Rixson is what I've typically used in the past. The 370 is the one I'm familiar with, and then the one that's the next side down from that. And from that video, I understand you have an ABH that is very similar, which I'm fine with using if it's a copy of that Rixson. I put those Rixsons in. I have some that I put in probably 15 years ago that are still used every day that I've had no trouble with. So seems pretty bulletproof, but I'm a little bit concerned about trying to put an automatic door bottom. I was going to use one on the bottom and the top, and I'm worried about the longevity of the pivot action compressing that adjustable plunger on the edge of the door.
You're concerned about what portion of that's longevity is a concern?
Well, because I've imagined just from sketching it out that there's going to be a lot more side leverage on it versus compression, that you would normally see from a leaf type hinge. It's going to be more of a sweeping motion than a compacting the door against the jam motion.
Yeah. Well, you're using it in a center hung application. You're certainly going to want to take that plunger and you're going to want to round that off, turn it into, give it a radius,
right.
and then you're going to need to have a custom strike made, so that it's, moving along the jam. The issue though, in doing this is the amount, the duration in time that the plunger will have contact with the jam is substantially longer and will begin to interact with the jam when it is far more ajar than it would otherwise be. So as you're pushing that door closed and the plunger gets pushed into the housing, you're dropping the bottom. I think you'll have a substantial concern about dragging the sweep.
Right.
You're gonna make a lot of contact before you're closed. So that's the concern there. Now, lots of people have done it, but that would be my concern of it actually working really well.
Right. So I noticed I found a couple online videos of manufacturers. It looks like small custom manufacturers similar to myself that are in other locations, or I would just call them and chat them up. But they have their sales presentation stuff on YouTube to showcase their products, and I noticed that I can't find anybody that's saying, hey, we build pivot doors and we put automatic door bottoms on them. They are using some type of a sweep, but most of them also have some type of a low boy threshold of some sort, which our architect wants nothing to do with. He wants a continuous flowing motion from the inside floor to the outside space. So he's wanting it with no threshold. So then I would, have a continual dragging motion of whether we used a rubber type drag or a hair type drag. So I'm trying to check all my boxes before I go back to him and say, hey, we can do something, but I can't guarantee it's going to work. But I hadn't thought of I see what you're saying. The action is going to start before the door is in the closed position.
Yeah.
I know some of them they seem to start at like a half inch of travel and go all the way to an inch. And I even noticed the door bottoms that I've used in the past have been either oh no, I'm gonna have a mind lock because I'm looking at stuff I'm not familiar with. But the local ones to me were Penco and one very similar to the Penco. I imagine it's probably a copy of a Penco, but and they typically are a little bit clanky, and sometimes people complain about the noise they make. And I see that I'm holding one cross section for a Zero brand. And,
yeah, that's a complaint. I had sold automatic door bottoms for 5 years before someone complained. This is not acceptable. And I said, what are you talking about? The sound. And I'm saying, what sound? And then when I listened for it, I said, oh yes, that is a measurable, emission. So when you're hearing it, you're using a medium to low end unit. You go with the better, bigger stuff, they're designed to muffle the sound very well. But you can still hear it, but it's very muffled. Zero is a good example of that. Now, moving forward, you're not at the point of going back to the client and telling them no good, because you can do this. There is equipment that, just in your mind's eye, you've got an automatic door bottom installed in your door. The plunger is flush with the edge of the door, and it must be depressed every time in order to get it to drop. They put a small electrical, gizmo. I don't know if it's a motor or a solenoid. I imagine it's a motor. So that when the door position switch tells the motor it's in the closed position, it will then stick the finger out and will depress that. Is how that works. So it's not impossible. It's just you'd have to the wall would have to be wide open in order to get that motor stuck in there.
Yeah, we've got you've got glass immediately adjacent to the door. But that's interesting. So who do you vend a product that uses motors?
Zero has it in their catalog, as does another company by the name of Legacy.
That's the other one I found. It appears one is a copy of the other. I don't know who came first, but their cross sections are identical. Yeah,
so the father, Zero, is a company that's been around, has been around for decades. The ownership of Zero about 3-4 years ago sold it to Allegion, and Allegion owns Schlage, LCN, Von Duprin, et al. The non-compete time expired, and pops up Legacy.
Interesting.
So that's it in a nutshell. So the point is that you're looking at two things that will be very similar because they are. One does not have solutions that the other doesn't have, except, there are times when Legacy is able to really beat the lead time, and there are times when Legacy, when you convert it from Zero to them, it's a complete fail. So, Legacy is not necessarily the answer. It won't give you anything that you need for this project over Zero.
Okay. So I would be better off going with Zero than... Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say you'd be better off. I wouldn't make that claim, but if you say to me, tell me why to go with one over the other, I would probably decline that. They meet the same specs. They're equally awesome and equally awful, in their own regard.
I will need a special length. It's a 44-inch finished length is what I think I'm going to need. So there's that. If one makes a custom length faster than the other.
Well, if Legacy's firing all pistons, they'll certainly beat the lead time game. But
okay, I had actually called them not knowing who was who before I asked, because I was flipping through I printed off a bunch of stuff yesterday. I spent 3 or 4 hours looking around for what I thought I was initially concentrating on finding on maybe using one of the much narrower ones so that I didn't have to make the door wider than what they wanted. They wanted 2 1/4 thick. I think I'm going to have to do like 2 1/2 or 2 3/4 thick. But then, so I reached out to you because you seemed in your video to be pretty knowledgeable, and you have tons of videos about tons of hardware, lots of which I'm very familiar with, and some that I'm not. But I had also tripped across.
What did Legacy tell you about their suggestion, if they had one?
They didn't. They thought that there wasn't enough room to put those 2 products together and have it work.
Well, yeah, that's the other obvious problem. But moving beyond that, did they have? I mean, if you took a surface mount and then semi-mortised it, did a recess mount so it was flush, like you see that in hotels because of ADA requirements, you can't project into the clear opening.
Right.
And if you go with a thicker than average door, yeah, it'll shoehorn it all in there. But again, it's the plunger and jam length of time the 2 are in contact that I'd be concerned with.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I'll have to do a physical mock-up and see. And I'm, we go to I'm trying to figure out what problems I might have before we actually make stuff, and then we have to make it work. Before I have a finished thickness door, and I have to contain everything inside a 2 1/4 or 2 1/2 or 3 or whatever we do. I'm trying to head off the problems before we get to the oh shit moment. What am I going to do? But I've also thought I could custom machine an end plunger. If we take their brass, nut off the end and put a custom plunger with a little bearing on it. But I hadn't thought so in another YouTube video.
To push that idea a little bit further, if you had, a bearing that was spring-loaded, that it would eat up some travel before you really hit the part where you wanted it to drop, that might be interesting. Or you had something that telescoped that had a spring under it. Would really have to hunt around the McMaster car website to find these components. But it's, if you had something that would travel, that would travel a little bit and then bottom out and then move your door bottom down, that could be interesting.
So in looking at there's a Russian fellow that has made videos of himself with extremely huge, overly thick. I mean, I think most of my customers would turn their nose up at it because he's building doors that have offsets. I would imagine because the weather is so horrendous there, he's double weather stripping everything. But his doors are probably 4 or 5 inches thick. But he doesn't talk in his videos. He just shows you, camera time from him in the shop and then installing it. But he did make mention of some of the different hardware that he was using, and I just Googled around and found the door bottoms that he was using, and it looks like they're Roto. So they're German. So there's Roto North America. Are you familiar with them at all?
I'm not.
So they have the plunger actuator on their doors. It's not a brass, center push piece of hardware. It's more of a plug end that is appears to be made out of plastic, and it's like curvaceous. It's convex. It sticks out into the space, so it would it wouldn't be hard and need a wear plate on the jamb necessarily. I'm sure they might put something on the jamb, but it looks like it might be a little more conducive to a pivot door. I didn't know if you knew anything about them.
What's the part number?
DBB space 1530.
Yeah, I've got that catalog open. Let me take a look. Well,
I didn't even see I kind of gave up there. I dived so deep down the rabbit hole, I've lost track of where I started. But I didn't see a vendor here in our country for them. All I see is stuff in German.
Yeah. I don't.
If you Google that, the 4th item down shows a picture of that plastic plug that I'm talking about, and it's a German website.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking at it. I've got their catalog pulled up. it goes back to kind of what you said. Can you, will it work in a center hung? I don't see how that will necessarily help.
Right. It's hard to say. Maybe they have, maybe less of a depression action creates more of an extraction, more travel.
Yeah.
But I can't find anything in English of theirs.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I've got 3 large steps in my life that I'm working on. The first one I've done. The second one I'm working on. The third will be to manufacture a motor-driven automatic door bottom, so that there'll be a door position switch that will tell it to close, because I want to put automatic door bottoms on exterior doors that swing out, and you need some way to be able to tell that thing to drop.
Right.
And they do make Pemco does manufacture a cam block for the exterior, for that pull side application. But I want to be able to control it electrically, because those doors will have access control on them. So anyway, just a piece of aluminum that I'll have milled on my CNC, and then I can buy a tiny solenoid or a motor, and just gut something else. Yeah, so it's I probably said in that prior recording, I would like to hear how this turns out for you. Now, what you could do is the door swings in, I imagine.
It does, yeah.
Oh, okay. What you could do is go very low tech and mortise. So if you go with a 2 3/4 inch thick door or whatever it is, mortise a 1/2 inch channel, the width of the door in the bottom rail, and you'll install a piece of extruded aluminum, a T-slot. Into that slot, you'll slide your pile. But what you can do to make it kind of better is mortise that a little deeper and then get springs, so that as you tighten the screws to attach it, you'll, in effect, control the projection. And yes, you've got a sweeping action, but pile itself is quite soft, not nylon brush. The downside of that is, here in Florida, if there's anything, even if it's 20 degrees or, 20 miles an hour or 30 mile an hour, yeah, the water's coming in. Pile's not going to stop it. So That's the downside. We can have it beautiful and not seal very well, or we can go full Russian.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is, in Texas, the weather here is pretty mild, and this is probably 10 or 12 feet under cover that's only 9 foot off the ground at its low point. And there's a courtyard out in this. So it's not going to get like any direct line of sight wind or rain because of the way the courtyard is set up. So that's what we have going for us. So the pile thing, it's hard to say and we don't get any access to the homeowners. Unfortunately, the architect gives us what he wants, and the builder, communicates with us, and we don't go to the architect unless we run into a huge problem. But I almost find the homeowners move in and then they find out that they can't, because of all this silliness, because of the flush floors and all this, they can't put a rug in front of their door.
Yeah, it's a classic Frank Lloyd Wright problem. It's beautiful, but it's not. It didn't last necessarily. Yeah,
so it's hard to say, and I can't get involved with the homeowners, because then they get back and bitch at the architect, and the architect says, you're paying me to design something that looks nice, not that works nice. So keep your mouth shut. And I'm like, I have to realize where I am in the architecture of the ladder system or pyramid, so to speak. I'm pretty far down.
The ecology, yeah. We're bottom feeders, us distributors. I'm a real bottom feeder. Shut up and where's my tracking number?
Right. All right. So I've bought stuff from you before, just online. I've ordered just hinges just off your website, and so I'll I'll grace you with an order when I get it together, if I can, if you have what I settle on using. And I'm guessing from that video, it sounded like the ABH0370 is just a copy of a Rixson 370.
Yeah, so just a small amount of additional inside baseball. The owner of ABH was Rixson's engineer, or one of the two of them, back in 88, 89. Here in late 1990, he walks in and says, "Hey, you know me from Rixson?" I'm like, "Yes, I do." He's like, "Look at my catalog." I'm like, "Wait a minute, an 0370? Let me guess, is that a 370?" So it's literally identical. I mean, it really is. ABH has been in the game for 30 years, and they've done really big work. Same experience you've had. They got one for 15 years. It ain't ever showed an inch of giving up yardage in terms of durability. So good people, close to O'Hare Airport outside of Chicago. Just, family owned. No reason not to use them, and I will encourage people to go that way. But I would also say the same thing about Ives or Dorma, and I love Rixson. It's just, you're paying for a name a little bit.
Sure, it is what it is. Yeah, I'm not worried about it with one hinge, but I got to go back and I've got some samples that I need to pull out of the drawer at the shop and make an actual mock-up and make sure I'm thinking of everything. The thing I didn't like about Rixson was that there's no adjustment in it, but the last time I used it, I made my own adjustment, which worked out pretty good, but I was needing less clearance at the floor, so I'm not sure I would have room to do what I did back then to make this one work.
What undercutter you're working with, or what clearance?
Well, I'm going to have to do whatever the automatic bottom will dictate, as much as possible, hoping that a homeowner could get a rug in front of it. If we could do one that moved an inch, I think that Zero has 7/8 drop.
Zero will have items that'll go 1 inch, and if you need to go beyond that, that might be where Legacy could come in, because I think I could tell them, hey, I need an 1 1/4 drop or whatever. I think those guys can tweak that stuff, but we'd have to look into that.
Okay. All right. So I wouldn't hold you to anything. So for a custom one like that, where we put more drop into it through Legacy for a 44-inch piece, I would probably do a custom one on the bottom and just do an off-the-shelf one on the top, because the top's just going to be a 3/32 reveal that I have to take up. I would probably use a narrower body instead of doing the 1-inch mortise. I'd do one of the smaller ones. I've seen different sweep type arrangements for the top reveal on a pivot door, but it rubs the finish off of the jamb eventually. So, and I'm imagining the horsehair stuff would probably do the same.
Over time. I completely agree.
Yeah. What do you think lead time for Legacy for a custom deal like that would be?
Yeah, assuming that they can do it, they're the crew that'll tell you they can get it out tomorrow, but tomorrow always turns into 7 days. Right. 1 to 2 weeks, that kind of thing.
1 to 2 weeks, okay. Okay, and then does the price double from an off-the-shelf unit? Looks like from looking around, it's going to cost $125 or something, maybe. Is it?
Yeah, I would throw 50% at that, assuming they could extend what you may need on the drop, which I don't think you're going to need anything special, but I would put 50% at it. Okay,
so we'll say and that makes pretty much zero difference on this place. But we're putting in. You should see what the glass costs, because they're doing oversized glass around this door. It's crazy.
Do you have access to someone, or maybe the architect does, that's really good with AutoCAD? I'm not really good. I can do basic things, but knowing how to plot that, how to get that drawn in AutoCAD would be beyond my skills. That would be money well spent.
To draw the entire door, or just to draw the
center hung application with an automatic door bottom. That, if the architect knows someone who's extremely proficient, you could model that. and know beforehand.
Huh. Interesting. I don't know what they're using. I mean, I see their plans on print and get email files from them, so they obviously have an office full of people that no doubt use AutoCAD. But anytime we've gone to them to do drawings, it takes,
time.
Yeah, like a month would be the fastest we've ever gotten anything back from them. And sometimes it creates more trouble than I generally myself just do a physical model. I just go to the shop and build it and make sure it'll physically work, which is, I guess, what I'll have to do with this, just build a mock-up unit.
Yeah, I mean, you really wouldn't. Yeah, you would need some 2x material to screw it together, and there you go. And
that hinge is so robust, I'm not worried about it being offset in the bottom of a over thick door. I'd put the automatic door bottom on the outside, towards the outside of the door, and put the pivot hinge towards the inside.
Yeah, that would only, of course, that vertical axis of pivoting location, of course, would directly affect the radius that you would need on the door. In your case, I think it would require less of a radius. You're going to bias that vertical axis towards the inside, so your radius on the inside would be smaller. That kind of stuff I can do in AutoCAD. I can tell you where to put the vertical axis of pivoting. So I'm going to reach out to PEMCO and ask if they can do that, though, because I believe the gentleman there has the skills, and I'm going to ask him if he can do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I will get on with my physical model and play with it a little bit and see what thickness I need to make it work. And then when I decide to order parts, I'll holler back at you.
Well, thank you very much.
Richard, what hours do you generally keep there? You're in Florida?
I am. I'll be here till I'm 90. Monday through Friday, normal time, half a day on Saturday usually. Email is always on.
Okay. I enjoyed talking with you, Richard. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Architectural Builders Supply hopes you have enjoyed this program. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.